on public safety and mass transit. This is our 21st session on October 14th, 2014. It is about 2:27. We're running late. And after this committee, we will take planning, which we have delayed, and then Public Works, and it will be followed by finance. So if you're here for the other committees, it'll be a little longer. Please turn off your cell phones, pagers, and other mobile communication devices, or at the very least, put them on the silent mode. Can you pass down the... I'm calling this meeting to order. Pound on that for me. Thank you. And the committee consists of Mr. Onishi and Mr. Yoshimoto and Hilo today, Mr. Iligan, Mr. Kern, Mr. Kanuha, Ms. Eoff, and to my right, Ms. Willie, Ms. Poindexter, and I'm the chair of this committee, Brenda Ford. And we are now going to be taking statements from the public. So would the Ka'u, do you have any testifiers?
Madam Chair, we have no testifiers for your committee. Thank you.
Kohala, do you have any testifiers?
Chair, we have no testifiers for this committee.
Thank you. Waimea?
Good afternoon, Chair. We have no testifiers for your committee.
Thank you. Hilo?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. We have 2 testifiers in Hilo.
Thank you. We have 2 testifiers here in Kona. Hilo, please introduce your testifiers, bring them up to the table, and we'll start going. And here we'll take Sally Anchetta and Tammy McAller. Please come up to the testifiers table now. Hilo, go ahead.
Our first testifier is Tim Michelle, speaking on Bill 302.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I just want to say I'm totally opposed to this.
Sir, excuse me, please state your name.
My name is Tim Michael, M-I-C-H-E-L, resident of Puna and District 4.
All right, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
I really don't have 3 minutes worth of testimony to make. I really would like to say that it seems to me that Mr. Kanuha's bill is way ahead of itself. He says he's following the state's lead. The state passed a very small ban yesterday in state buildings, which seems completely logical to me. However, a ban on private citizens on private property and in county parks makes very little sense in my eyes. The research is out there. It doesn't seem like it's available to you at the moment. If you would like research, I can make sure that by the next meeting you have enough research to block you for us from seeing you at the time. Otherwise, the outdoor smoke ban, in my eyes, was brought about just because of rubbish was the whole thing with the outdoor smoking ban, and with the electronic cigarettes there is no rubbish. So I'm trying to figure out where the correlation is at the moment between electronic cigarettes and regular cigarettes in accordance with your county parks and recreational facilities ban. And that's really all I have at this point.
Thank you very much, sir. The gentleman next to you, please state your name, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Mariner Ravel from Hilo. Thank you for hearing me today, folks. I spoke to Mr. Onishi a little bit not on this issue, and with the whole smoking 21 and over bill that passed previously this year, and my whole thing is I'd really like the council to be educated before making decisions and make a fair and scientific decision based on scientific and real testimonies from regarding electronic cigarettes. I own smoke shops here in the Big Island, and I am the longest selling retailer of electronic cigarettes here on the island. I've been selling it since 2009. And I've actually worked with Senator Akaka and Inouye with electronic cigarettes and the government. And if you guys have any questions, you can ask me about that. But my concern here is that, like Tim said a little bit earlier, that it's kind of, pushing things that, I understand that cigarettes are evil and smoking and secondhand smoke are evil. But electronic cigarettes are a totally different animal, and please do the proper research. And, I invite any council member to please come down to my store, or I have colleagues that have stores in your districts. Come and ask us, how does electronic cigarette work? How does this benefit your customers? What's in it? How do these things work? Please understand that before making decisions on banning, for various reasons. So with that said, I just really would like the county council to consider really asking us, the professionals who sell it, and along with scientific, real solid information on how I help more than 70% of people that come in my doors to stop smoking or completely stop. And I've actually talked to a customer of mine who's a doctor, who's a toxicologist. His name is Dr. Wald in Kamuela. And he told me, as soon as he walked in the door, he looked at me and he said, "There's nothing in here that causes cancer." And at the time, it was 2010. I said, "How do you know?" He goes, "I'm a toxicologist. My name's Dr. Wall. Nice to meet you." So, with that being said, I'd just like you guys to please be educated on the fact and get to know what electronic cigarette is. Don't be afraid of it. Come and ask us and do the proper research. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We're coming over here to Kona, where we've got 5 testifiers now. Ms. Anchetta, please introduce yourself. There is a bar on the bottom. The light will get really bright. Give your name, and then you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Ford. I'm Sally Anchetta, and I am the East Hawaii Coordinator for the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii. It's an honor to be in front of you today, Hawaii County Council members and Chair Ford. The Coalition of Tobacco-Free Hawaii strongly supports...
Okay, Ms. Anchetta.
Yes, ma'am.
When you look down, you're getting away from the mic and we lose your voice. So you've got to either hold your paper up a little bit or get the mic down lower so when you lean over to read, we can see it. Would you start your time over, please, Madam Clerk? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Anchetta.
Thank you. The Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii strongly supports including the electronic smoking devices in Bill 302. It adds and amends important definitions of the law, which are critical to allowing consistency among all of Hawaii County smoking laws. Confusion of smoking prohibitions result without such definitions in place. Furthermore, emerging research is there, and it shows dual use or cigarette use switched to ESDs in locations are not permitted to smoke. Allowing the use of ESDs in locations where smoking is prohibited is problematic in that the electronic smoking device threatens the social norms, creates distractions in the workplace, and undercuts years of progress by tobacco control groups. And ESDs do not emanate harmless water vapors, but they are an aerosol, and they contain nicotine, ultrafine particles, volatile organic compounds, and other toxins. And there is research that has been done. According to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, they have not found consistent control processes within the manufacturing of ESDs. Restricting the use is a growing trend across the U.S., and at least 110 counties, including that of New York City, Los Angeles, Long Beach, and San Diego, have policies in place. And I'd like to go back to the manufacturers themselves, that they acknowledge that ESDs contain nicotine, are addictive and habit-forming. They're intended for committed smokers and should not be used by women who are pregnant or persons with elevated risk of any medical conditions, including but not limited to heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, or asthma. And I have seen firsthand the use of workers feeling violated when a coworker is using an ESD in the workplace. As a former tobacco treatment specialist, I facilitated a quit smoking program in 2010 at a mental health clinic where staff and clients attempted to quit together. I did a 6-month follow-up program with them, and one of the staffers had switched to using an ESD inside the workplace. The staffer that was trying to quit was jeopardized with violating her clean indoor air, and she was threatened her ability to remain smoke-free. And it really compromised her ability not to smoke at the workplace. And in closing, we have a tremendous support in Hawaii Island for this bill. In a recent poll, 70% of our residents supported this bill, and I have today over 500 signatures in the last 2 months of residents at just several events, including the Hawaii County Fair, that strongly support this bill. So I ask you to just regulate the place and the manner that e-cigarettes are used, add them to our laws, and it'll be consistent with enforcement of our tobacco-free laws. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. McAllar?
Thank you. My name is...
I'm saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And we need to have Sean Anderson ready to come up. And with that, Sean, Joseph Sarabia. Okay. Go ahead, Ms. McAllar.
Thank you. My name is Tammy McAllar. I'm the West Hawaii Coordinator for the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii.
All right. Hold on, Ms. McAllar. I need you to pull that microphone much closer. You're soft-spoken.
Oh, I could probably do it without the mic.
No,
okay.
It's got to be recorded. Thank you very much. You've got 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to provide information today. I am a public health educator. I work with Sally, and I agree with all of her points. And I would like to provide a little bit more information on some of the research that's available out there. First and foremost, we are looking at our support for Bill 302 is really we're restricting just the place where electronic smoking devices are used. We would like to see them put into all the other policies that Ohio County has that focus on smoke-free and tobacco-free areas. One of the key things is that we keep finding in the research that we've been looking at from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, from environmental journals, from tobacco and nicotine research articles, is that e-cigarettes do not just emit a harmless water vapor. They the secondhand aerosol, which is contains nicotine, ultrafine particles, and low levels of toxins that are known to cause cancer. E-cigarette aerosol is made of high concentration of ultrafine particles, again, and it's much higher. Those particles are much higher than the conventional tobacco. As we've seen today, it was wonderful to see the article in West Hawaii today about the state of Hawaii banning the use of e-cigarettes within their Department of Accounting and General Services. And Linda Rosen, the director of the Hawaii Department of Health, said, based on various tests, vapors or aerosols emitted from e-cigarettes contain nicotine and other carcinogens and toxic chemicals that are just as harmful as those in secondhand smoke of regular combustible cigarettes. It's important that consumers are aware that e-cigarettes are not healthier than regular cigarettes. We don't know, but they haven't been regulated. There's so many unknowns. It's very important that we look at preventing some of the hazards that these e-cigarettes could prevent. In an article that I've provided to you, as well as some information in our fact sheet that has also been provided to you, one article, The Hazards of E-Cigarettes, concluded that e-cigarettes emit harmful chemicals into the air, and this was a research done by indoor environmental engineers looking at testing out e-cigarettes within a certain amount of space. They concluded that e-cigarettes emit harmful chemicals into the air and need to be regulated in the same manner as tobacco smoking. There's evidence that nitrosamines and a group of carcinogens found specifically in tobacco are carried over into the e-cigarette fluid from the nicotine extraction process. What happens with the e-cigarettes is they have a heater inside them. That heater heats up to over 600 degrees. The chemical that's within the, I have 30 seconds. Okay, what's happening is the chemicals within the e-cigarettes are being heated.
Okay, thank you. We can call you back later, but your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
Are we giving a warning?
We didn't make the announcement about the 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. We're supposed to do a 30-second warning. I apologize, but we have to move on. And
Okay.
hang around. I'm sure you'll be called back up.
All right.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Anderson and Mr. Sarabia, am I saying that correct? Okay. Mr. Anderson, you're first. Please give your name. You've got 3 minutes total and a 30-second warning.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. My name is Sean Anderson. I own Black Lava Vape here in Kona. I employ 5 employees. It's funny because I have studies that can counter everything that their studies say. I mean, it's almost like a prosecution and a defendant. They're going to call up their own expert witnesses, and they're going to contradict each other. just like the gentleman in Hilo said, all we really ask is that you guys come into the store, talk to us before you make something illegal. I was speaking with her earlier, and she admitted, we don't know what if anything will happen. The other thing that was kind of surprising with what she said is that 70% agree with this, and I strongly disagree. I see 500 customers a month that come into my store. All of those customers have families, and all of their families are happy that they're not smoking cigarettes anymore. I mean, simply put, the constituents do not want this to go through. When it comes down to voting, I mean, the elections are coming up right now. So this is a really sensitive thing, I would think, based on the fact that I guarantee if this goes through, the people will not be happy with it, because there's so many people that this really helps. And it's not just them, it's their families that it also helps as well. So come, ask us questions before you ban something. The other thing is there is no tobacco in e-cigarettes. That is just the most paramount that you guys have to understand. 40% of what we sell has no nicotine in it. It's just vegetable glycerin, which I can get at Whole Foods, Island Naturals, I can get it at Walmart. Raw vegetable glycerin and flavoring. No carcinogens. What you guys are talking about and what all these studies are talking about are the little small ones that look like cigarettes. That's about 20% of the population of e-cigarette smokers smoke those. The rest of those people smoke something similar to this, which they can control what juice they put in. They can control everything about it. So it's up to them. I mean, they're adults, they're 18 or 21. There is no scientific bearing of anything that there is harm from secondhand smoke. That study, I can find studies that will contradict that. Just come and get information from us. Ask us, please. You know, you can't say that this is like a cigarette. You can't say that this is like a cigarette if there is nothing like a cigarette. The only thing about it is it's an electronic cigarette. That word cigarette is a dirty word, you know? So basically, you got a cigarette and you got an electronic cigarette, completely different things. So when you're trying to coalition for a smoke-free tobacco, I've had many of conversations. We are literally on the same page. We do not like tobacco. We don't allow tobacco in our store. We are 100% against it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sarabia? Give your name first, please, and you've got 3 minutes with a 30-second warning, and your light should be off now. Okay.
I'm Joseph Sarabia. I am the manager at Black Lava Vape. I'm here on behalf of those who couldn't make it themselves, those at work, or even some of those that are still hanging out down at the shop now. But since I've been using electronic cigarettes, personally, I feel a lot better. My breathing feels like I can actually breathe. I'm not buying packs of cigarettes daily. I'm not throwing trash or rubbish somewhere that doesn't need be. And also, I wouldn't get rid of my own device like what he has or what I have personally. I wouldn't just throw it out or leave it somewhere sitting that somebody else could get a hold of. It's a tough line because like you guys said, there's not much information about it, but come get down to the store and see exactly like what we're doing, what we're making, everything we use, and just get a little more information because it's not tobacco. It's the furthest thing from tobacco. It has nicotine, but nicotine's the same classification as caffeine. So does that mean you got to ban coffee? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So me as a 19-year-old, I'm just trying to further understand what is kind of going on. Are you guys just trying to take away the right of me feeling healthier, or do you want me to go back to smoking cigarettes? I don't understand. But there's my piece.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Next is Jake. I can't read this. I'm not sure if it's Brader, Braden, or Brada. So please introduce yourself by name and say your last name slowly. No.
My name is Jake Braden with an N.
B-R-A-D-E-N?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I am an industrial hygiene and safety professional, and I study airborne concentrations in the workplace generally of different types of contaminants that you run into in occupational environments. I have a Master's of Science degree in Environmental and Occupational Exposure Science from the University of Washington, and I've been studying this recently because I was very surprised to see that they're trying to do anything to impede electronic cigarettes, because if you look at this from a broad perspective, it is a public health issue in regards to cigarettes are known to cause cancer. It's such a reliable correlation that sometimes scientists use the smoking rate as a prediction for how much lung cancer is going to come about in the future. With electronic cigarettes, you cannot call them the same thing as regular cigarettes or characterize their vapors in the same way that you characterize cigarette smoke. We can say we don't know a lot about health studies on cancer risk from electronic cigarettes, but scientists can look at the molecular structure of different chemicals and tell you whether they're likely to be carcinogens because they've studied carcinogens and they know their molecular structure. It's not likely to be a problem based on what's in the vapors. You get a significantly lower volume of organic compounds in the vapor than you do from cigarettes, and based on the studies that I've read, it's extremely low toxicity and it dissipates rapidly in the environment. And if we just focus in on what we're really debating here, banning it from a lot of places that are really outdoor environments, in the workplace, the American Industrial Hygiene Association has recommended that that be considered in the workplace, whether it's going to build up in the indoor air environment. But if we're talking about outdoor air environments, you might as well be regulating whether people can grill a steak. There's more polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons in the smoke coming off of a grill than you would get from an electronic cigarette. So basically, if you're going to make that decision to ban them, it better be based on good science, because you're going to actually have some unintended effects of putting people that are trying to quit right next to people that are still smoking in the smoking areas. Then they get secondhand smoke exposure. And if you're going to make a decision about whether to do this or not, it needs to be a public health decision based on science, not a moral judgment of people that use them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Braden. All right. Any other testifiers? Any location? Hearing none. Closing public testimony. Madam Clerk, please read in Bill 302.
Bill 302 amends Chapter 14, General Welfare, Article 4 of the Hawaii County Code 1983, 2005 edition as amended, relating to prohibition of smoking in certain places and the use of electronic smoking devices. Prohibits the use of electronic smoking devices in all enclosed and partially enclosed places within the county where use of tobacco products are currently prohibited, and also prohibits use of electronic smoking devices at all county parks and recreational facilities. Reference Communication 1091, introduced by Mr. Kanuha.
Mr. Kanuha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve Bill 302.
A second by Ms. Eoff. Thank you very much, Mr. Kanuha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate all the testimony, everybody showing up, so mahalo. I just want to, make note that this is not an attempt to take away anyone's right to smoke e-cigarettes or electronic smoking devices, but rather restricting the places that we can use, that they can be used. The purpose of the bill is to add e-cigarettes and electronic smoking devices to our current smoke-free county law in areas where smoking is already prohibited by law in Hawaii County. So simply stated, it just adds electronic smoking devices and e-cigarettes to the existing law that we have here in Hawaii County. Again, I'll restate that much is still unknown about these devices, e-cigarettes and electronic smoking devices. It is largely unregulated by the federal government, and also noted that its effects are relatively unknown. So given the unknown public health impacts and the current lack of regulation, you know, I'm proposing this somewhat ban in workplaces and public places as a precautionary approach until the safety is conclusively established. Again, I'll note that the Hawaii State Department of Accounting and General Services just came out yesterday with that press release prohibiting the use of e-cigarettes in all DAGS buildings statewide, citing that there is a growing concern that the vapors emitted by e-cigarettes may contain harmful elements. So DAGS joins the Department of Health, Department of Education in banning ESDs in their workplaces. So again, I'm here for questions. It's pretty self-explanatory what exactly this bill does. Basically stated, it just adds e-cigarettes and electronic smoking devices to our county law. So I'll leave it open to questions from the rest of the council, and I'm open to a lot of different ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Poindexter.
Yeah, listening to the testimony, you know, at first, with no disrespect, Sally, to your testimony about the petition, you know, Mr. Anderson had a good point, because if he started a petition, and we had a petition going around the island of all the e-cigarette smokers, we'd have a lot of signatures as well. So I see where there needs to be some type of balance. And I hear, you know, I heard the gentleman, I cannot remember your last name, testify also. And, you know, I sympathize with the people who are addicted to nicotine. And this was an option for them because we were banning cigarette smoke, which is a great thing, banning smoking cigarettes. So I know I have a lot of family members who still got to get rid of the pack and the dirty rubbish and all that stuff, and try to encourage them to go to e-cigarettes, maybe kind of limiting, you know, and cutting it down, maybe as a way to quit. I like your testimony where you said not all of it has nicotine in it. Also, a point very well taken that in the open air, open parks, if we do away with an open air areas, then, you know, are we just, you know, what are we doing when we look at people who are doing the cookout with the charcoal and stuff and that coming out? That's smoke. That stuff is a lot more damaging to me than the e-cigarettes. I do agree with that. So it was great testimony to hear that. I sympathize with the people who are struggling with the addiction, because I think e-cigarettes is an option for them to move in the right direction, maybe of even quitting, and we need to start looking at how do we work together with the people who are struggling with this addiction, instead of just trying to compound things. So right now at this time, I'm kind of uneasy, but I'd like to ask Councilmember Kanuha a question. If, you know, would you consider amending it to where we could have some in the outdoor areas? You know, I agree that in an office or in a movie theater, that to me should not be, e-cigarettes should not be in there, period, in closed areas. I'd just like to ask if you would be open to some type of amendment.
I'm open to a lot of ideas. I just want to hear from the rest of the council. Do you want me to explain this is just adding to the current laws we have in place for Hawaii County, as in parks and recreational areas.
I understand that.
You can smoke anywhere you want
Right.
outdoors.
I understand that, but in the park, but we have some open air parks that we don't allow cigarette smoking. But I'm asking if we could allow e-cigarettes.
Come again?
Excuse me, absolutely. I have no problem with your interaction. We're all learning from this.
Yeah, with this one, it provides uniformity and will avoid confusion, for the general public as to where smoking is allowed and where it's not allowed. So that's it just makes it uniform.
Okay, so would you be open to the idea of some type of amendment, because being that it is different. It is, it is different. So my question is, are you open? I guess you answered it before. You're open to whatever the suggestions are.
Well, this bill is in charge. The council is in charge of this bill right now.
Yeah. I just wanted to know how you felt about it. Okay. So thank you. I yield at this time.
Mr. Iligan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the testimony. It's actually, for me, it's great to see young people testifying, and it's really amazing to see that. Well, the thing, I've been really thinking about this, because there is a difference, and I'm actually looking for some sort of compromise, and one of the things that Councilmember Poindexter pointed out, I'm actually along her thinking, because I'm thinking, as much as I see somebody smoking an e-cigarette right next to me, I feel like indoors, I'm kind of sketchy, regardless if it is safe. Like let's say scientifically they found proof that it's safe to smoke, but for some odd reason that smoke, maybe it's just me, but perception and also mentally it affects people, just psychological. So indoors, I feel like we should limit that within our jurisdiction. However, when it comes to outdoor recreational, where it's in a county park, I feel like that should be open for e-cigarette. And the reason why is because I feel like it's the appropriate place to have it. If knowing there's a lot of things still not certain with e-cigarettes that we are unsure of, but I can honestly feel that I would support a restriction indoors. However, when it comes to outdoor activity, I would prefer we allow e-cigarettes. And that's just my preference. And that's kind of that's where I'm headed. But I do appreciate you bringing this up and really making me think about what's the difference between a cigarette and an e-cigarette. And right now, if I have any concern with this bill, it would be that. So at this time, I'll yield. And
sure if we shouldn't take this out in that section. So I haven't looked it all through and seen exactly what changes would need to be made, but I think that based on the testimony and just the objective of supporting the intent, but also not going beyond reasonable parameters, I would like to see an amendment along that line.
Thank you. Mr. Kern.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think this is a great discussion. Thank you, Mr. Canoa, for bringing this forward. I was at the movies the other day, and there was a guy sitting in front of me, and he was smoking an e-cigarette. And I could see the vapors. I couldn't really smell it. It was nowhere near like offensive as like a regular cigarette would be. But I was kind of tripping out there for a minute. I was like, wow, this is just interesting. I'm sitting there with my wife, kind of like, can kind of smell something. But as Mr. Logan said, there is something psychological that goes on in there. I don't know if you're sitting to a row back or whatever, it's like, okay, this is a little bit odd. I think the balance that we're kind of looking at, brought up by Ms. Poindexter and kind of dittoed by some of the other council members, does make sense to me. I think, I've been with people at the beach or at a barbecue, and they're smoking an e-cigarette, and it didn't bother me. I mean, it's their own choice to do it. Do I want to be in a movie theater with it? No, I'm sorry, I don't. Or in a county building? I don't. And I think there would be an argument on both sides of those. And it just comes down to an overall respect. But I think to stop somebody from smoking those outside or in our county parks and stuff, I don't think will be maybe as good as we would hope it would be. So I would support that, leaving it open for outdoor areas, and then consummating it with all the rest of the inside places as the other cigarette laws we have. I think that would make sense. Also, too, from the perspective of quitting, this would actually help people quit a little bit more if they're using it as a transition, because being able to do it inside, I think people might indulge in it a little bit more. It's very convenient, it's very easy, versus you making that transition. It's still treated a little bit more like that other, like a regular cigarette, where there's time. You kind of got to move your take the time out to go do it, and that would probably be a good thing. So I would support that 100%. See what Mr. Kanuha has to say, and let's try to find a balance. And as more research and more discussion happens, we can figure that out. But yeah, so that's where I stand with it. I'd love to see an amendment come in. I'd be down to postpone this and have an amendment come forward, or whatever it takes. So I think it's all about all of us working together and trying to find and bring a mutual respect for everybody's choices that they make. That's what I would like to try to do. Thank you.
Ms. Hilo.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. And thank you, Mr. Kanuha. I know you put a lot of work into this, and I would support it as is. I grew up around secondhand smoke. My mother smoked cigarettes, and I'm sensitive to smoke and to vapor smoke. However, I do understand what is the other side of this right now, that people who are trying to quit cigarettes and use e-cigarettes, that possibly in open-air parks, I would also consider supporting that amendment. So I just wanted Mr. Kanuha to know that I would support it as is, but if the will of the council or the majority of the council would be more comfortable seeing us exempt our county parks where that's in the open air, I could also go along with that. So thank you, council members, for the discussion, and I would agree that it might be wise to postpone it while, because it looks like there's a few sections that would have to be changed if that's what we're going to do here. There's several places where either the definition of tobacco product needs to be slightly different, or the changes that you did make to the county parks without making tobacco or cigarettes legal there. You would have to do some language changes into that section. Okay, I'm sorry, I think I'm just not speaking to the mic, but okay, so I'll yield at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Onishi, I can't see you, so did you want to say anything?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, you have the floor.
Can I have Corp Counsel to come up? Hi, Molly. Can you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Molly Stebbins, Corporation Counsel.
So I'm looking on page 2 of our, I guess, what do you call it, like the agenda, or what this is about, the bills for ordinance. Then,
Mr. Onishi, excuse me for interrupting,
yes,
but you're turned away from the mic and we can't hear you very well.
Sorry
over
about
here.
that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so on page 2, it reads that, I guess under the title, right, that prohibits the use of electronic smoking devices in all enclosed and partially enclosed places within the county where use of tobacco products are currently prohibited, and also prohibits the use of electronic smoking devices at all county parks and recreational facilities. Okay.
I'm sorry, can you
I'm
clarify where you're looking at?
I'm looking at the what you call, like our agenda.
Oh, your agenda. Sorry, I have the bill in
Okay,
front of
can
me.
you get down?
Yeah.
On page 2. So below the heading, right? So right now, if we do pass this, so e-cigarettes would not be allowed in any enclosed places or enclosed or partially enclosed places within the county. And not only county parks and recreational facilities.
Correct. Well, basically all of those same places that are set forth in the existing section of the code that prohibits smoking in certain areas.
Okay, so now, as the testifiers had testified that, okay, the state, I guess, Department of Health, DAGs, and so forth, they, I guess, made a rule or administrative rule that there cannot be no smoking within those state facilities, right?
That's my understanding,
Okay.
yes.
Is it possible for us, for the Hawaii County, to do the same? Like, say, we put in where it prohibits use of electronic smoking devices in all county recreational facilities, period.
Could you amend the current bill to just
Yes, okay.
restrict it to certain areas?
Instead of saying like all facilities or all enclosed or, partial enclosed facilities, places in the county, that for now we can just put that e-cigarettes is prohibited in all county recreational facilities. So like, say, for example, here in the county building, it's prohibited to be any e-cigarettes be, smoked in the county building, or when you go out Puni Center or go to you guys' office, but any county facility. But other than that, people can smoke the e-cigarettes.
Yeah, I think you can structure the bill like that, for sure. I mean, if you say all county recreational facilities, that is a little unclear, and that wouldn't encompass, like, this particular building is not considered a recreational facility. But the code, the existing code, it lays forth the different areas where smoking is prohibited, and you could clarify which of those areas also would extend to electronic smoking devices.
So the wording could be that e-cigarettes is prohibited at all county facilities.
I think the focus really isn't on the actual description of the bill on the agenda, but it would be necessary to go through the bill itself and look at the different specific areas designated, and then decide what the intention was as far as what areas you want to apply to electronic cigarettes and what ones you don't, if the intention is to limit the scope.
Okay, so that means this whole Bill 302 would have to be amended for just saying like at county facilities. Because if you look at this bill right now on section 14-22 exemptions, we could put in those wordings in there.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Okay. In the exemptions, okay, can we say that, okay, e-cigarettes are allowed at county parks or open space area, county open space areas?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not sure of the best place to put that. It would be necessary if I think the main thing is to clarify what the intent is. If you want to limit the scope of application, then it would be necessary to go through the bill. I mean, just looking at it right now, I can't say if it would really make the most sense to include that in exemptions, but rather to somehow clarify when you look at section 1421 and it designates the areas where smoking is prohibited, you could clarify which of those apply to electronic smoking devices and which do not.
Okay. Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Onishi,
Yes.
just a clarification. You and Molly are talking about exemptions, but you really mean exceptions in section 14-22. Is that correct? Exceptions.
I'm sorry, yeah, exceptions.
Okay, thank you. We just need a clarification
Sorry about
over
that.
here.
Sorry. Yeah, exceptions. But we could, being exempt, but, okay, so if an amendment is done, then it needs to clarify where, so where you cannot smoke and where you can smoke.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would the council members allow me to ask some questions before we go to round two? Is there any problem with that? Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Anderson to come forward and bring your little funny device. I've never seen one of those. Yeah, no, I don't even want to get near it. No. Okay. Until today, I did not know the name of that, and that is an electronic smoking device, correct? As differentiated from the little white things that look like cigarettes, which are called e-cigarettes or e-cigs or something. Is that correct?
Yeah, e-cig is a generic term.
Okay, that's fine. I'm going to ask you questions. I just need really short answers because I want to give up the floor again. Now, you put some type of volatile, that's maybe not the right word, some type of aromatic something or other in your device there, right?
It's vegetable glycerin.
Okay, that's what you put in it, okay? But could somebody else put something else in it?
It would depend on what it is. Now, the way that this is set up, it works with vegetable glycerin, so you could put other stuff in it and hit the button, but nothing would happen.
Okay, the reason I'm asking a question, because it was asked of me, is somebody able to create an alcohol-based, I'm sorry, I'm going to just use the word alcohol-based marijuana product and put it in there? Because alcohol will ignite.
No.
It will not?
No.
Does it have to be oil-based or alcohol-based in the mixture that goes in there?
That I'm not sure. I know that vegetable glycerin and propylene glycol, when heated up, the byproduct is water vapor.
Okay.
We don't use propylene glycol because it's a chemical.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So well, that puts a little bit of ease in my mind. Okay. The other thing is both of these things are producing some type of volatiles that are coming out. The e-cigarettes, they're worried about the nicotine because it actually has nicotine. And you can't tamper with the little e-cigarettes, right? They come with whatever is in them, and you can't tamper with those. But the concern was that these could be, the liquid you're putting into them could be
bad.
Something that we don't want around us, whether we can see it or smell it or not.
The last thing we would ever want to do is hurt anybody, I
understand.
I mean, that's,
Okay. I do have some of the concerns that Mr. Kanuha has raised in here, that none of these things are allowed on airplanes. The federal government is not regulating these things at this time, which always concerns me. I understand the precautionary principle. I've tried many times to use it. And when you fill that ESD, how long does the stuff stay in there? It'd be one smoke?
This particular tank is 5 milliliters. This will last me about a day and a half.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I do understand Mr. Kanuha wanting the consistency of our current bill. And for that reason, I would kind of lean toward him and his thoughts on this, because it's really hard to see an e-cigarette unless you get right up next to it. You don't really know what's going on unless you see the smoke, and you can't see anything coming out of them. For people like me who are highly asthmatic, I get a lungful of cigarette smoke, and I'm on my knees.
Horrible.
Trying to survive, okay? I've been right next to a person smoking an e-cigarette and had no reaction whatsoever. And so on that score, I'm kind of leaning towards Ms. Poindexter. But the consistency issue is a real problem, and I'm concerned about that. I haven't done sufficient research on the testing of these things, and so thank you, Mr. Anderson. If nobody else wants to ask you questions, I'm going to ask you to step back. Ms. Anchetta and Ms. McAllar, please come forward. Thank you. And either one of you can answer this question. You have mentioned some studies that have been done by credible people. At least I would consider these organizations to be credible. Would you mention the name of one or two of these organizations have done some testing? And was it on the e-cigarettes or was it on this ESD that was here? Because I understand there's nicotine in the e-cigarettes. I'm hearing there's no nicotine in the other thing, and so I don't know what the study was about. Either one of you?
A consumer can put nicotine in the e-cigarette. They can choose to. So some will have the liquid nicotine, and some won't. They'll just have a flavored oil.
Okay.
So,
are you talking the e-cigarettes? Or are you talking the ESD?
Both.
So both of them can be amended with something.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's just up to the consumer to decide what they want to be inhaling this aerosol in their lungs.
Okay. All right, and that's your understanding as well?
Yes.
Okay, and then Mr. Anderson's got a completely different understanding or belief or whatever.
Mr. Anderson, I know that he focuses on selling electronic smoking devices that don't have nicotine. His store is, so.
Okay. All right. So does anyone else have questions of any of these people? Because I've reached the point of
Can I
more
just,
time.
I think that
Yes, go
I
ahead,
wanted
Ms.
to hear the
Poindexter.
answer on her question that when the studies came out, were they done on the e-cigs only, or what kind of, what was it based on?
I believe it's on both.
You believe it's on both, or you know for sure? I think that's the question.
I have to look.
Well, according to the study right here we have of the American Non-Smoker Rights, this journal.
Okay, hang on.
Yes, ma'am.
The study. Please name the source of the study.
It's the American for Non-Smokers' Rights. It's their fact sheet of different studies that they put together of different data. Theirs was on electronic cigarettes and secondhand aerosol. So they, again, like Mr. Anderson had stated, it's the terminology of the industry to call it an electronic cigarette. So there's been multiple studies on either the disposable device that you're talking about that looks like a cigarette and the rechargeable, or the ones that they can refill.
And can I add the studies? This whole fact sheet was put together with several studies. One is from the Journal of Environmental Pollution. Another one is from the University of California, San Francisco Center for Tobacco Control and Research. And then there's several other ones. I can read them all if you like.
I think the concern was what were they testing? And
right.
That was my, so that,
Well, according to another article that was submitted to the county council from ASHARE, which is an environmental group of engineers doing air conditioning, heating, and refrigeration. They did a study of 4,000 different e-cigarette brands and looking at the exposure inside an indoor area place. And the conclusion Tammy referred to in her testimony. So there's been multiple studies of different types of electronic smoking devices, from the e-cig, which is you buy already with everything in it, and the ones that you can refill.
And so, same type of conclusions to...
Well, I think the challenging with all of these studies is the industry is, where they're manufactured is so many different places, and they're completely unregulated, so there's not a standard.
Yeah, so that's what's confusing, and I guess, and I speak for, I'm not speaking for people who smoke, because I don't smoke. I have family members who smoke who feel that, they feel they're being handcuffed and thrown in jail for some reason, and I know, and I want them to quit, and so I have a staff member who said, I wish these e-cigarettes were around when I was little because I think I would have had my mom a little longer. So, that tugs at my heartstrings because what she may have been saying may be true. She could have enjoyed her mom for a little while longer. So I'm really struggling with this because I do want to thank, Councilmember Kanuha for bringing this up because it is a concern, like even what Councilmember Iligan said. It's, somebody doing that next to you is like, whoa, So it's just a mind game thing, but and still I feel for the people who are trying to get off the cigarette, to get onto this, and I just feel bad that we're trying to do this whole more of a restrictive than trying to see how we can help them further along, and it seems like we keep trying to restrict them, but I do agree around the kids, so I'm really struggling with this, but help me out here. I mean, I got to figure this out, and I'm sorry, I just got to say that I'm really struggling with this, so I yield at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Poindexter. Mr. Kanuha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I have to bring up that this isn't taking away anyone's rights to buy an electronic cigarette, to buy ESD, or to, if they need help smoking or stop smoking and they want to buy any of this, they're all in their right to go and do that and smoke it wherever, This is just making consistency with our county law, with our county and state laws on indoor smoking, and that's all this is doing. And I'm okay to amending it, but the consistency is also something that I'm struggling with, of how, in our county parks, or beach parks, it's illegal to smoke cigarettes. But you can smoke electronic smoking devices, and it's almost the same type of situation, so it's very difficult to enforce. So that's where I'm trying to figure out how to make this consistent without being inconsistent with the way we're going to enforce these laws. So, but I'm okay. I mean, if this is the will of the council, I'm okay with going with the will of the council. I just want to make sure that, we have this type of consistency throughout our county, and that's what's going to be really difficult for us to figure out. So I'm open to whatever the council wants.
Can I
Thank you.
May
Yes,
I say
yes, go ahead, Ms.
something on the
McCower.
side? Probably about a month ago, I taught 2 days of classes at Kalakahi Middle School. I was asked by the health teacher to come because the influence of the e-cigarettes and electronic smoking devices is very large there. And we asked all the students in each class and found that 75% of those students in this middle school had either tried or are using electronic smoking devices, which concerns me a lot because we are seeing this trend throughout the United States growing like crazy. It's tripled, at least, in the last couple of years.
Excuse me, just for clarification, the trend of children?
Of children utilizing electronic smoking devices, and the CDC has looked at that. We have different studies, and one of the things, especially focusing on the outdoor parks and recreations, is having that consistency and not having the influence of seeing adults utilize the electronic smoking devices. If we're allowing them to smoke out at the parks, it could be a coach that's deciding to use electronic smoking devices while they're coaching the kids. Just the influence of what's going on with the kids out there is just tremendous, and these are middle school kids. So I just wanted to share my experience here in West Hawaii.
And Chair Ford, if I could add one last thing, just for clarification, we both did a community assessment report this past summer, and one of the questions we asked is there any companies that have an electronic smoking policy already in place, maybe privately owned? And some of our larger employers of Hawaii County do, including Hilo Medical Center, which has 2 acute hospitals and 10 outpatient clinics, and as well as KTA, HPM, Hui Malama, Ola Na'oiwi, Native Hawaiian Health Systems, and Bay Clinic. And several of those companies have submitted testimony in favor of this policy. So to go along with that idea of regulating place and time and manner of use of this product.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kern, you were next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think as far as this is a tricky one. As far as this discussion is concerned, it's and the nuances of the electronic smoking devices. I think we should just assume that the person using an electronic smoking device will be smoking something with nicotine in it. Just make an assumption. Like that's about the worst that it's going to be. I don't think they're putting something else in. That's a whole other problem, and that's a different deal. But as far as that goes, I think that's the discussion that we should be having. That it's assumed that that there is nicotine in those electronic smoking devices. And what do we want to do with that? How are those affected? It's tricky because we don't have all the research yet. What does it do outside? I mean, from the inside perspective, I get it all day long. And like what you said about somebody working to quit smoking and their coworker is right there with an electronic, that's got to be just torturous and really challenging. I think it's a no-brainer. Outside, though, what are those effects? What is the effect of standing next to somebody when we're breaking down someone's basic rights? Then you take it to a whole other level of how's that influencing our children. This gets really tricky, right? And it's this balancing act that we have to navigate through. It's people's civil liberties, what that means for the community, and the effects it has on somebody else. If it's not having a guaranteed negative effect on somebody else, what do we do with that? I mean, do we ban beer? We ban beer at the parks. People still drink it. People drink beer. I mean, the kids are being exposed to it. What do we have to do something more than just, it's something greater than that, in my opinion anyway. So, where do we find the line with you can do this and you can't do that? And it is it comes down to a public safety issue. I wish we had more research. That's why, like right now, doing it inside, cannot do it inside, no problem. As more research comes out, what is this true effect outside, and there is something there, then yeah, I mean, that would be an absolute no-brainer. I'm just trying to, again, find that balance, assuming that people are using an electronic smoking device, smoking nicotine, because that's their prerogative. And that's a decision that we should ultimately be making, or just voting up or down this bill. What a tough one, really.
And Councilman Kern, if I could address your question.
Sure.
According to the fact sheet from the American Non-Smokers' Rights Journal of 2014, exposure to electronic smoking devices, e-cigarettes, to the fine and ultra-fine particulates exacerbate respiratory ailments like asthma, constrict arteries, and could trigger a heart attack. And so there hasn't been the extensive study, because this is a new industry, this is a new product, like cigarettes and secondhand smoke. But I agree with you that we just don't know all of the research yet, but there has been some, and it is documented.
And thank you for that. I mean, that's an important statement. Now, does the same effect true if we're outside and somebody was next to me doing that? How does that particulate travel? How does the particulate travel? You know what I mean? Because does it travel like smoke? Because smoke can come down, it can waft, it can move. Does this particulate so light and soft that it goes more? You know what I mean? It's these nuances that I would like to know, to have more research behind, because it's that finite line. We're asking people not to smoke. They're moving over. You know what I mean? It's a challenging enough task on its own. They're moving over to e-cigarettes, and we're trying to. Hopefully, it's a weaning process.
Right.
But what do those things mean? The more, you know what I mean? I guess that's what's going to be coming over the years, is more data, more research. But from even just a psychological standpoint, the inside is scary to me. And then you get into toxins and stuff. Should we be banning open fires? You know, I mean, how about the people in sitting in their car with the exhaust running, and there's people in the car next door? It's like balance. So I'm just rambling on here. I totally support inside and outside. I think we should have a little more research and leave that open for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Willie. Yes, Mr. Onishi, I'll call on you after Ms. Willie.
Okay.
I think this is a very good discussion. I almost want to sit and think on this a little more. And I want to say, number one, I appreciate Councilmember Kanuha's talking about enforceability. And I know the police have come before us before where, we have to enforce this and not this. And I think that is something that we need to consider. Second, following up on Councilmember Kern, where is the line and where is it appropriate? And I think Councilmember Onishi talked about the parks and that. I'm inclined to say, okay, no, don't do it in the parks where you got kids around. They're all following everybody else is doing. Okay, what's the difference? This cigarette, this electric. I appreciate that point of view. I just put myself in there. Here, have a puff. Oh, that tastes good. Oh, here, have a puff of this. That tastes good. Whatever. And I think that's important. At the same time, if you sit in a restaurant where there are adults and it's open air, it's an open air place, I lean on the other side. So that's sort of where I'm looking. At the same time, I do want to go back to Mr. Kanua's point about there is a significance in terms of uniformity and simplicity, as I'm finding in other areas of law. And we're always trying to, what's the carve and carve out and everybody protect and this, and you start getting this thing that sort of, it's hard to know, is that okay here or it's not okay? I thought this was an okay place. No, that's not. So I just want to say, I don't know, I certainly don't feel ready to vote on this right now. And I appreciate all of the comments, and I appreciate all that you all have said, and just trying to do what's there, but keep in mind that our laws are enforced by people that need to be able to do so in a way that's not little tiny nuances of when this is okay and when it's not. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Mr. Onishi.
Okay, thank you. Mariner, you folks want to come up and maybe have your last comments? You want to come up? I mean, you've heard the discussions. Yes? So you guys can introduce yourselves again, and then if you have any last comments on what you've heard from discussions.
Mariner Ravel, again, from Hilo. I've heard all the information here, and I'm really pleased that the council is, taking into consider about the whole research aspect. And I just want to make one point. As a retailer of tobacco products, electronic cigarette products, I was at the meeting in June, about the new law. And half of the law pertained to electronic cigarettes and whatnot. And I was really disappointed because most of my questions that I asked at the event went unanswered. And two of the people that were there are in the Kona side right now for Tobacco Free Hawaii. And I asked, why, it pertains to liquids without nicotine, and why was it banned? Why is it considered a tobacco product when there's nothing in it? And it's really confusing. So the whole thing boils down to that, I'd really appreciate if everyone just got, proper education on the product and went out there and asked real questions with people that use the product, people that make the product, manufacturers, people that are, smokers that's been smoking for 30 plus years, like my friend's mom, who's been smoking since she was a little girl, who got on the electronic cigarettes and stopped smoking within 3 months. And that's my whole goal is to help people. I sell products with tobacco in it, but by all means, if I can help you stop smoking with electronic cigarettes. My dad died of not electronic cigarettes, but of smoking since he was 10 years old, and I saw him die. And that's something that, unless you're there, unless you're there and you witness this, your hero, deteriorating in front of you and you have a product that can help people, I'm all for it. And that's all I'm here for today. Thank you very much.
And my name is Tim Michael. I'm from Puna, District 4. I just have a couple of quick things to say. One is a direct quote from Mitch Zeller, which is the Food and Drug FDA's Tobacco Products Director. And his direct quote is, if we can get all these people to completely switch all of their cigarettes for one of these non-combustible products, e-cigs, that would be good for public health. That's Mitch Zeller from the FDA Tobacco Products, and he's the director. If anybody knows, he would know. I heard the women, and I'm not sure where they're from actually, say that the FDA has done studies. The FDA has done no studies, none, zero. It's right now, the comment period ended in July. They're looking at regulations now, but the FDA itself has done zero studies on electronic cigarettes, none. They've used a couple of other studies, and none of them were peer-reviewed. I keep hearing people bring up studies. If we're going to talk scientific studies, let's talk scientific studies that are published in a reputable medical journal and peer-reviewed, period. Those are scientific studies. Anything else is hearsay. It's nothing. It means nothing. There's no concrete data involved at all. And my third point is, it seems to me at this point, you're not trying to govern, you're trying to parent. And there's a difference here between governing and parenting. There's that people that have children are parents. They're supposed to be controlling their children and doing their parenting. You can govern, I can understand you governing, but the government is not a parent. It's not our job to parent every child in the world. That's just not what we were set on this earth to do. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And my last question to one of you guys is that, okay, to at least let the public know, so in this e-devices, okay, nicotine-wise can be from 0 and up to like how much? I mean, because I know like there's like 2%, 8%, 6% or whatever, right?
Yes, definitely. And I forgot to mention actually that when I started out on a 24 milligram of nicotine.
Okay.
As of now, that was 13 months ago. As of now, I'm on 6 milligram of nicotine. So I've cut my nicotine intake down by 75% in a year, which I smoked for 36 years before I quit. In my eyes, that's a huge difference. And yeah, you can get all the way from, I know people that start on 36 and go down, but you can get anywhere from 36 all the way down to 3s and 0s, depending on what your needs are. A lot of times when you quit, so you start out really high, and as you wean off, you go down lower and lower.
Right. And then, for your customers, do you have customers where sometimes they just want that puff because they're so used to that?
Absolutely. And, part of my questioning at the meeting back in June for the whole electronic cigarette thing is that not only do we have people that use these electronic cigarettes for smoking, or, I have people that are diabetics that like to taste apple pie, chocolate, and other dessert flavors. And by vaping, they get a sensation of getting sweet products in their mouth, and they're not getting any calories. They of course use the no nicotine. Like myself, I use no nicotine e-cigs because I'm not, I don't like the nicotine at all because it makes my throat sore. But to clarify on the nicotine, it's usually on a percentage rating where it's either, say, like a 12 milligram will be 1.2%, and it goes usually up to a safe level of 3.6%. There are other people that make their own liquid at home that may go higher or lower, but for the most part, like in our stores, 2.4% is the highest that we go. It's a safe level.
Yeah. Okay. And I think as one council member mentioned, is that some people who are like regular tobacco smokers and they're trying to quit, so they go to this alternative, right? And you folks see that happening.
Oh yeah. It's I have a store that specifically sells electronic cigarettes, and we don't sell anything else but electronic cigarettes, the liquids. And people that are coming in every day, every week, I'm helping somebody stop smoking. Yeah. And if I don't help them stop smoking altogether, they're weaning themselves off the tobacco. And you see the health results. Like if after 1 week, you'll notice that you'll start smelling. Your sense of smell comes back. You can taste food. You're breathing better. You're able to play with your kids and your grandkids, and you're feeling a lot better than than when you're using, the carcinogens and tobacco and all the chemicals that come along with it.
Okay, thank you. I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. Iligan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for Councilmember Kanuha.
Go ahead. You guys can discuss this. It's okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the flexibility. And also, Ms. Inchetta, if you don't mind, I have a question for you afterwards. Thank you. So, from what I heard you say, is you're looking for uniformity, you're looking for consistency. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you also mentioned enforcement. Is that along the line you're looking to?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear while I'm trying to process everything. And Ms. Inchetta, when I did my research, I myself am not 100% guarantee or 100% agree that we have data that says the impact of an e-cigarette on secondhand. But from you, I wanted to know, do you feel that there's adequate, or what's your percentage in your confidence on the current study out there? Because you have access to more information than I do when it comes to e-cigarettes and tobacco. And I just wanted to know what your feeling is regarding e-cigarettes and secondhand.
Well, according to one of the studies that Ms. McCallum quoted as a conclusion, that, with the studies that they've done in small indoor air to see the particulates of the electronic smoking devices, I feel very strongly that there's enough evidence to see that there is an exposure to metals, there's an exposure to other chemicals, there's, if they have nicotine in them, there's a nicotine liquid that you're exposed to. So I feel very confident in the studies that we've been able to research, and we've provided the county council copies of with indoor air. And I agree with current.
Are you saying that you're confident with that single study?
Or there's been multiple studies, but I believe that this study from ASHARE, which is the American Refrigeration Heating Engineers, that they conclude e-cigarette emanate harmful chemical into air and need to be regulated in the same manner as tobacco smoking. I wouldn't share this testimony if I didn't feel confident in it. And look at these resources. All of these studies are well documented, well referenced by reputable agencies such as the CDC, and so I feel confident with their research.
So you're saying that with those studies that you currently read, you're saying that if there was no future study done, you are confident with those studies, with the results that they have. What, if there were another study, let's just say, what would verify those studies? Like who would had?
I'm not a public health researcher, so I don't feel confident in my personal opinion to say, that one study negates another. What I think is important with the discussion here is just looking at just regulating the place that e-cigarettes are used. I do not believe that people should, at this point, not, if they are using that and they are reducing their ability, their dependence on traditional tobacco products, I think that's encouraging.
For me, I'm trying to understand where to regulate a place by kind of getting your input on where you stand on the scientific research that you have read on regarding the secondhand smoke impact, because I feel like the reason why we have these laws is because it does infringe into our I'm infringing into his private space when I'm blowing a smoke. And that's why I would support restriction of cigarettes anywhere. But I'm trying to understand if e-cigarettes does the same thing. I feel like it does when I'm indoors,
right.
But when I'm not, I feel differently. And how, so I'm trying to understand from, I'm sorry, did you have, go on. And,
Tammy McKellar.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can add a few things and support my colleague here.
Please.
E-cigarettes, there's no regulation for them. There is no proof that says that they're going to help somebody quit smoking. There's no regulation. But what I wanted to say, it's going to take years before we have all the research to know exactly what's going to happen, just like what happened with tobacco. And for years, using cigarettes was just fine until so many people became ill. I think what's important is to understand how these e-cigarettes work. And I think in looking at how they work, where there's a heater inside each one that burns the liquid at a very high level, and we know when things are cooked, or when we cook things or when we burn things, the chemicals change. And so what the indoor environmentalists have seen from their studies is that these chemicals that are used within, either with nicotine or not with nicotine, the flavorings, which are food additives most of the time, they're finding chemicals that are coming out that could affect, that are affecting somebody that's nearby. Because we can't see the aerosol as much, we don't see it personally. We might not be able to smell it, but when they're doing their studies, they are detecting carcinogens like formaldehyde and other things that we found that are not good for our health. It's going to take a while before we're going to actually see those health consequences occur, just as we did with tobacco.
And is it true, is it true in outdoors too?
When we look at, I'm not sure about outdoors. I know that for the DAGs, they've regulated, they said within their smoke-free workplaces that it would be in patios and lanais and in that outdoor area. I think it's within the proximity of the person that's utilizing the smoke. I know for me, being at the beach and someone smoking in front of me, even though they might be 50 yards in front of me, I'm smelling it. It's coming back to me. In tobacco, in studies where they've looked at tobacco smoke, even under a partially enclosed area like a balcony or a lanai that you're underneath, the tobacco smoke stays up there for a long period of time.
Are you saying that tobacco smoke and e-cigarette smoke are the same?
No, I'm not. We don't know enough about, but if there is particulates within that vapor, within that aerosol that comes out, yes, that's going to stick around for a while.
Thank you, ma'am. So I've been thinking about this, and my conclusion is that, to simply put, fruits, there's different types of fruits out there, and we handle them all differently. E-cigarette and cigarette has different characteristics, and from my observation, I still don't have all the studies and scientific fact to back it up. But from my experience, I would have to say my parents went to Europe, and my sister saw a lot of kids just smoking cigarettes in Europe. It's amazing how influential that is. But when it comes to e-cigarette and cigarette, I feel like they're two separate characteristics. And I'm willing to support a restriction indoors, but not a restriction outdoors for e-cigarettes. But we do need to encourage young people in general, really to adapt better habits. And why? Because we just have so much respect for ourselves. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Elegant. Ms. Poindexter?
Yeah, I'd just like to share one story because, and I asked permission from my staff member to share it because he used to smoke. and the e-cigs is that help him quit, and he's not smoking anymore. So that was helpful, I know, for him. So I just want to say that, even there, lots of studies out there. We have our own little personal studies, and like you said, you don't know the difference. I mean, if there is, with the regular cigarette smoke to e-cig, because there's not enough studies. So the bottom line is, we all know that there are not enough studies, for it. And so I'd like to support the banning of indoor. I believe that would be fair, but again, that would. I'm hoping that we lean towards that, but that's my hope. So I yield at this time.
All right, thank you. I'm going to make just one comment, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Kanua if he wants to close, and after that, I'll entertain a postponement motion. The one concern that I have lots of concerns, but the one concern that I'm going to investigate between now and the next meeting, and I will do this with the police chief, is how are the police going to handle the e-cigarettes or whatever the ESDs in the park. Because I personally do not want to waste 1 minute of an officer's time to go down to a park and say it's not really a cigarette that people are reporting to the police department. It is an e-cigarette, which is maybe legal, depending on how we handle this. Not 1 second of an officer's time. We got real serious problems. So that concerns me. I'll write to the chief and ask him, how would you enforce this policy if we did it, with including the open spaces in our parks? And so anyway, Mr. Kanua, you may close if you like.
Thank you. That's my concern as well. It's going to be difficult to create the consistency that we're talking about with this law, if this law does pass. I love all the comments everybody made, and I'm appreciative, trying to make the best bill possible and keep it as simple as possible. It's just basically restricting the use of it in certain places. That's all it does. And being consistent with our tobacco laws. But, hearing from the rest of the council members, I think it could be possible to make amendments. I don't know yet. I'll have to go back and do a lot of research on what we can and can't do and work with the police department. And, but I appreciate the statements made by everybody. So I actually will make the motion to postpone, being that there's a lot of discussion still to be had on this bill. So I move to postpone to the next meeting, which is November 6th. Move to postpone Bill 302 to November 6th.
Second by Mr. Kern? Yes. Okay. Just for the record, Mr. Yoshimoto has returned until at least 4:20. And all those in favor of postponement of Bill 302 to November 6th, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? No opposition. All right. Motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, move to adjourn.
Second by Mr. Iligan. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.